Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Akaina Benyo, and today I'm going to give a testimony that is very personal to me as a Christian and as a follower of Jesus Christ. And I'm going to be narrating to you how a community volunteer work, which I did way back in 2012, earned me a trip to the Holy Land, Israel, in 2019, 7 years later. So way back in 2012, when I was at the second year of the University of Nairobi School of Law, during one of the many long holidays. So I was back in the village, with the youth playing football and having meetings here and there. And I received a phone call from one of the villagers who told me that they had a meeting of a group which was meeting in a place called Nanyangakipi Primary School. And they wanted me to attend that particular meeting. And the guy really insisted that I must and should attend the meeting. So I was like, why should I attend a meeting which I'm not a member? I'm not even aware of the discussions in the meeting. And, I'm a university student. I'm supposed to be at home relaxing during the school holidays. So the guy really begged me to attend the meeting, and I decided to give it a yes. And in the morning of the day of the meeting, I was spending the night in my home village, Rehovot. I was collected by a few other guys who are joining the meeting from that village, because it was a meeting which brought together people from 3 villages in Kerio. So we went and we left Rehovot at around 4:30 a.m. in the morning, and we walked for like, I think 15 kilometers, arriving at Nanyangakipi at sunrise, maybe 7 a.m. So we went to the meeting, and I found a group of people, some of whom were personally known to me, and it was a fully packed hall. And so the discussions began, and these guys were talking about water conservation and climate change and hygiene and sanitation and WASH, and that UNICEF was supposed to fund a project in Kerio to educate the community about sanitation and hygiene. And so I asked them, so why do you invite me to this meeting? I'm not a member of this particular group. Actually, I later came to know the group was being referred to as Kenalo, Community Water Resource User Association. So Kenalo is an abbreviation for Kerio, Nanyangakipi, and Rehovot, and those are villages in Kerio Delta Ward. So I sat in the meeting up to around noon, and then I was very uncomfortable. What am I doing in the meeting? And they told me, we invited you to come here and take the minutes of the meeting. And the meeting was actually made up of almost 99% illiterate community members who don't know how to write even their names. There was a few other people who are professionals and who knew how to write. So they asked me to write the minute for the meeting. And I was also told to facilitate the process of taking the officials to Lodwar and helping them to get the legal documents, the legal registration documents at the Department of Social Services for Turkana County in Lodwar. So I, developed the minute as I was told, and then I read to them the summary of the meetings and the deliberations. And the following day, I collected the identity cards for all the members and the officials. And then we left for Lodwar from the village. So we came to Lodwar, and I helped them to register the organization, the Water Resources Association. And then we went to the bank and opened a bank account with the Kenya Commercial Bank. And initially in the village, when I was asking them, so who are the officials of this organization? So they told me there's a guy called Marco, who is a chair, and then there is another guy, or was it a lady, who was a treasurer. And now they told me to write my name as a secretary. I was like, no. I am a member of so many organizations, including student organizations, and I'm not willing to enter or join another organization or group. So they told me, Akai, please, just help us, just put your name there. Just put your name there, please, because you are the only one, around our team here who is close to us and who knows how to read and write. Please. So I accepted the request by the community members to enlist myself as the secretary of the Water Resource Users Association. So we came to Lodo, we finished all the process, and the guys went back to the village. I also went back to the village, and I think within 2 weeks' time, I was back in Nairobi for my studies. So that was the last I had from that group. After the engagement in the primary school in Nanyakipi and registering the organization and myself being included to be part of the organization, for 7 years, they got lost. I also got lost, and we never met. So way back in 2019, God decided to reward me for the good work I had done for these guys. And in 2019, the chairperson of this Water Resources Association, called Marco, was called by, I think, the Rift Valley Water Services Board in Nakuru. And they were told that there is a training which is sponsored by the United Nations Environment Program and the government of Israel for 10 people from Kenya and 10 people from Ethiopia, the eastern part of the lake and the western part of the lake, to be taken for a training, a 16-day training at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in Israel. So the guys who are, compiling the list decided to nominate Kenalo organization, Kenalo Water Resource Users Association, to be part of the team from Kenya which was attending that particular training. So they wanted the chair to attend the particular training, and they called him with urgency. They wanted his passport details because flights were being booked, and they wanted to process the visa at the Israeli embassy in Nairobi. So they called the chair, and the chair had no passport, and they asked for the vice chair to produce his passport. The vice chair had not processed his passport, and same to the treasurer. They never had their passport. And then the chairperson called me, told me, I've given your number to a team from Nakuru, from the Rift Valley Water Services Board, and they're going to call you in the next 5 minutes. They need to talk to you. You need to provide your passport details, because there is a trip to Israel to do a training at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. So I was really very excited, because since growing up in my village and being a Christian and going to church and praying and reading about the Holy Land and where Jesus grew up, I really wanted to go to Israel. I have always had a dream of going to Israel. So the trip coming to me like a dream, I never believed it. I never believed this is reality. So within 3 minutes, a guy was calling me from Nairobi, and then he told me he's calling from the Ministry of Water. He needed to get my details so that he could forward them to the Israeli embassy, and I did that, very, immediately. I sent to him all the details, the date of birth, my full names, and the organization name, and all those things, all the required details. And then I was told to come for an interview at the Israeli embassy in Nairobi. So I went for the interview at the Israeli embassy in Nairobi. I was asked if I'm a Kai. I showed my documents. They did all the security checks, and I was told to come for the visa the following day. So I was called the following day, and I collected my visa, and they booked as Ethiopian Airlines. So we traveled as a team from Kenya, 10 from Kenya and 10 from Ethiopia. So we left Nairobi via Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and then we went to Tel Aviv in Israel. So we landed in Tel Aviv. We were collected by a huge classic bus from a famous bus company in Israel, and we were taken to the hotel where we were spending the next 16 days at the campus of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, in a place called Rehovot. The Israeli people pronounce the R in Rehovot like the French do, like Paris instead of Paris. So we went there, and then we were introduced, and the first sign I saw at the gate, at the entrance to the university residence where we were staying, was in case of missile attack, go to the safe room. And I remember asking the guide, why would they write issues of missiles here? We're in a city. Why are there missiles here? And then this guy tells me, told us, all of us, that it's a precaution, that you should know all the security regulations. Sometimes missiles come all the way from the Palestine border, the border with Palestine, to Israel, and it hits Tel Aviv and Rehovot specifically. So that was just a security precaution. We go to our rooms, and one of the most interesting things we got in our rooms was there was a guy called Njuguna, a very good friend of mine from Nairobi. His room, we were given keys at the reception. So Ekai, room 10 at the second floor, and somebody else, room 8 at the second floor, somebody first floor, somebody third floor, the ladies and all that. And then when we went to the rooms, my room was okay. My room was okay. I just opened it with a key, and then I got in, put my luggage. I was very tired. And then, so I saw Mr. My friend, who was given the room next to mine. Mr. Njuguna's room was, number one, its door was white in color. And then it never had the key, so he couldn't access it. He couldn't open. It was open by itself. And then Njuguna was very frustrated and very angry. And then he was like, "Why would they give me a room that has the door open, 24/7? Why would it?" And then it is white, it has a white door and all that. And then so we went back to the reception to complain about Njuguna's room, and. The Israeli, of course, because they understand it, laughed at us, and then they were like, "Okay, guys, so that room is called a safe room. And that safe room is a room that is dedicated for that entire corridor." Actually, the reality in Israel is every room or every building, every house, or hotel, or even school, which was put up in the Republic of Israel from 1980 up to date, must have a safe room. And that safe room is open 24/7 with a white door, very unique white door. The rest can be marked in red and blue color, yellow, all those colors, but the safe room must be marked in white. So in case of a missile attack in Israel, all of a sudden there is a missile attack, and all of you rush to that particular room. You rush from your rooms and you go to that particular room, which is kind of bomb-proof. So the missile cannot attack the safe room, and it is in every floor. And that is a legal requirement for all constructions and houses which are built in the Republic of Israel from 1980 up to date. And that is what we were told, actually, by those guys. So we spent the night there, and then in the morning we went for a briefing, as always, at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Rehovot Campus. We were told about what to expect for the next, 16 days of training and all that. And the training was about climate change and sustainable development in the Lake Turkana Basin. Talking about climate change in Turkana, talking about the River Takwel, River Kerio, the Lake Turkana, the Lotukipi Aquifer, Napu Aquifer, and how the Turkana people are literally walking on top of water when they, above the water, are thirsty. And that was very good. So we learned about the Israeli experience, how Israel, as a desert, as a country that has water as a scarce resource, manages to produce a lot of water and actually supplies this very water to their enemies in Palestine, in Jordan, in everywhere. Israel supplies its water to the neighbors who are actually hostile to it. So, that was about the church. So we went to a place called Shikma Basin. We went to the border of Palestine and Israel, and we actually met with the Israeli military, who are patrolling in the border. And, we asked them, about the famous Israeli air defense system, whereby, when Palestine throw the missile to Israel across the border, another missiles, comes from the Israeli side, and it collides with the Palestine missile in the air, and it falls down. It becomes ineffective, so it can't kill anything. And actually, that system is one of the best air defense systems in the world, and the Israeli people have been credited for coming up with such a technology. So that was that about the training. And one of the most important aspects of this particular trip was the trip, or the visits to the holy sites. So we began with a trip to Nazareth, and we went to the church where the angel Gabriel told Mary, the mother of Jesus, that you will become pregnant and you will give birth to a baby boy, and that boy will be called Jesus Christ. So we went to that church. It's called the Church of Annunciation, and inside that church is actually the place where Jesus was raised up, and we saw the house where Mary and Joseph and Jesus actually lived, and it's kind of a cave, dug in a mountain and with corners and stuff like that. Very good house. And we went also to the workshop of Saint Joseph the carpenter. Joseph, the father of Jesus. So we were told this is the place where Joseph was doing his carpentry work, and once he made his carpentry things, he will put them here, and then the people from this town of Nazareth will buy and purchase the tables and the chairs and all that. And that was really very exciting, especially having to know that this exact spot is a place where Jesus and his father spent their lives. And after that, we went to the River Jordan, and specifically the exact point, the exact spot where John the Baptist baptized Jesus Christ. And we were told, this is where Jesus was baptized. John the Baptist was standing here, and Jesus Christ was standing at this other point. And it was very exciting. And I remember a friend of mine called Tegatel from Ethiopia, one of the Ethiopian delegates, actually came, and he was so emotional and he was inspired. And we were advised in the bus, when you get to the River Jordan, don't throw yourself into the water, because there are so many people. And number two, we are running out of time. We have to get back to the hotel, within a short time, and we have to leave the Galilee region. They actually call the Sea of Galilee, they call Lake Kinneret in Israel. And Tekatel decided to get himself, throw himself into the water of the River Jordan, and he swam. And then we were laughing and taking photos of him, and he was actually baptized by I think Indonesian or Vietnamese kind of pastor who was baptizing some Koreans or Japanese or Chinese people in the River Jordan. And that was one of the lightest moments we had. Everybody was laughing. And then all of a sudden we were told we need to go back to the bus. And Takatel was still wet. So he had to go to the bus wet, and people were laughing, and it was quite a funny experience. And then after that, we also went to Capernaum, the town of Jesus, where Jesus grew up. And we were told, this is the town of Jesus. Actually, when you enter Capernaum, it's written Capernaum, town of Jesus. And we went to the synagogue where we were told this is the specific synagogue where Jesus Christ used to pray. So he will roll down from their home, in the nearby village, and then come here and pray and go. And it looks a very old synagogue, very old, with very old, stones, some very huge, which was the characteristic of the building styles of those times. So after Capernaum, we went to the Golan Heights. We were told, initially it was, I think it was a Syrian territory, and then Israel and Syria fought over it, and then the Israeli government, won the ownership of the Golan Heights. It's kind of a mountainous region with a mountain range and all that, and it was really exciting to see that. And then we went. Now, the most interesting part of the trip and of the visits to the holy sites was the visit to the city of Jerusalem. So we went to Jerusalem. First of all, Jerusalem is divided into two. So there is New Jerusalem, the new city, and there is the old Jerusalem, the old city. So, when you come all the way from Tel Aviv, going to Jerusalem, you are shown, are you going to the old city or you're going to the new city? So the new city is, the posh estates and offices of the prime minister and the new buildings, the big hotels and all that. And then the old city, old Jerusalem, is the Jerusalem that is exactly as explained in the Bible. With all those things, the wall, Mount Zion, the Garden of Gethsemane, the Mount of Olives, the tomb of King David, the Last Supper room where we entered, and all those things are all in the old city of Jerusalem. So we went to the old city because we are tourists, and we had a very professional tour guide, who knows the history of Israel like at the back of his hand. So we went there, and then we took photos, and people are so many in the holy site. We went to the palace of King Herod, and then he had built a huge swimming pool, and then he dug the ground and put up his palace there because of security reasons at those times. And then we went to Mount Zion. We actually saw a lot of bullets in the wall of Jerusalem city. And then we were told this is because of the war of 1948, when I think when some other guys, I can't remember who, attacked the city, and they wanted to take control of the city. And then there was fighting all over. I think it was fighting for more than 7 days or something. And then people were killed, so many of them, especially the foreign army which was attacking the Israeli government. Then we went to Mount Zion. So in Mount Zion, we saw something very interesting. We were told that the mother of Jesus, and I learned this for the first time, I never knew about it, because the history of Mary, the mother of Jesus, actually ends at the point whereby it says, very early in the morning, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ, went to the tomb, and they found the tomb empty. They rushed back to tell the people that the Christ is risen from the dead. And that is the end of the story of the mother of Jesus Christ. So we were told, actually, the mother of Jesus, Mary, actually died asleep. So she slept and slept forever. So we went to the room where she died. And then very interestingly, we went to the Last Supper room where Jesus Christ and the disciples ate the Last Supper. And it was really amazing and very emotional. Looking at that specific room, it's written the Last Supper room, and it has a police station next to it. So we were told this is where Jesus, was. He sat here. The disciples were here, and this is where he told them that one of you will betray me tonight. And then after that, he rolled down the mountain and went all the way up to the Garden of Gethsemane, where he prayed. He prayed for the city, and he actually cried. So after that, visit to Mount Zion, we went to the temple. The temple has two sections. First of all, the original temple was destroyed by the Amorites, by the Israelites, by the Mamluk, it was by the Romans, it was destroyed and rebuilt, destroyed and rebuilt. But one part of the temple actually remained. one part of the original temple actually remained, the temple which was built by King Solomon. So it remained, and it's called the Western Wall. So it's called the Western Wall because it's on the western side of the temple. And it's also called the Wailing Wall, the crying wall, because people go there to cry. People go there. I actually went there myself, and before you enter there, you are given, first of all, no photography, no videography, and then you must put on, this Jewish, whitish or brownish thing. They put it on their head. This which is put on by bishops in Kenya and in Africa and elsewhere. So you must put it on, and no photography. You switch off your phone. You switch off your camera. You go there to pray and to cry. And actually, if you have a camera, you switch it off and even leave it with the security. And if you have a prayer to dedicate to live to the Lord, you write it on a piece of paper and you put it in one of the spaces in the original temple wall. So some guy who was actually standing next to me, who was a Jew, was actually crying, and he was licking the wall with his tongue and crying. I didn't cry myself. I tried, but I couldn't. I was emotional, but I couldn't cry. And then I came back out of the Wailing Wall, and then we went to the Mount of Olives. So olives are very interesting trees in Israel. First of all, getting a branch from the olive tree or getting the seeds is one of the worst crimes you can ever commit in Israel, whether you are a foreigner or you are a citizen. So the olive trees are not found everywhere. You see one, after like maybe 15 kilometers, you see another one. Very unique trees. But in the Mount of Olives, there is a huge forest of these particular olive trees. Very interesting. And that is why it's called the Mount of Olives. There are so many olive trees which are found in other parts of Israel, but not in huge numbers as it is in the Mount of Olives. So the Mount of Olives is actually next to the Garden of Gethsemane, and that's it has a very good view of the city of Jerusalem. So you stand at the Garden of Gethsemane, at the Mount of Olives, and you have a very good view of the city of Jerusalem, including the famous King David Hotel. And the Mount of Olives also hosts one of the largest Bible colleges in Israel, where the pastors and people undertaking studies in theology are taught Bible studies. It has one of the biggest Bible colleges. And then after Jerusalem, we now went to, within Jerusalem, we went to Jesus Christ prison. So we went to the prison, and then, that was probably the most emotional part of the whole trip. Very emotional. It's written Jesus Christ prison. So we went inside a cave. It's a huge cave, and you have to move and meander and do zigzags. And even at 1 p.m., when the sun is there, you still can't see properly. It was dark. So we went to Jesus Christ prison. We were told this is the exact spot where Jesus was put into prison. He was put in this cell, and he was tortured by the Roman Empire, the Roman guys. And then we also went to the jail of the two thieves, including Barabbas, and we saw his jail. His jail was kind of downstairs, that of Jesus, and it's dark and it's very emotional. So people come there, people cry, people pray, and they really get emotional. It's a very sad scene. So we came from the jail, and now we went to the place where Jesus was officially accused of claiming to be the Messiah. And then we were told this is the place where he was kind of the charges were read to him in this exact spot. And the Catholic Church have a church there. It's called the Church of Condemnation. So after the Church of Condemnation, we took the street, a pathway up to the place where they put Jesus that spikes, and then also the Catholic Church has put up a church there, and then we came up to the point where Jesus fell down, and Simon of Cyrene decided to help him the cross, and all the way up to Golgotha. Now the most probably the second most emotional part of the trip was the visit to Golgotha. So Golgotha is this place which looks like a meeting. It looks like a jail. I mean, even the environment is just bad. It doesn't look good. So we were told this is Golgotha, and of course Golgotha, in Hebrew means the place of the skull. And you can even tell from the name that this is a place where people were tortured and jailed and killed by the Roman Empire, which was ruling the Israel region at that time. And we were taken up to the exact spot. We were told this is where Jesus was hanged, and then after he was pierced and killed and all that, this is where he was nailed to the cross. And then after that, they removed his body down and they put it in this particular stone, and that stone is a religious stone. So you see people licking it with their tongues, and people crying, and people, pilgrims from all over the world. And I think of all those places, the only place I can remember had a lot of people was actually Golgotha. Not even the people at the temple can be compared to those who were at Golgotha. Golgotha was a sea of humanity. You have all races, or the Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, Africans, and Wazungu from all over. People are praying there. People are coming to see where the Lord Jesus was crucified and killed. And then we wanted to see the Jesus Christ tomb, but we couldn't. We actually tried to queue. After around 3 hours, we were told, too bad, you can't see the tomb. There's a huge queue. You can't see the tomb. So you have to go back to your hotel because of time. You have to go back and all those things. And it was quite unfortunate that we couldn't see the tomb of Jesus Christ. But it was still fulfilling to see Golgotha. And very emotional, very bad place. You see, it looks like a colonial place where people. It looks like one thing I saw in Uganda, the torture chambers of Idi Amin Dada, where Idi Amin Dada killed over 19,000 people in Uganda during his time. So after that, I think the last part of the trip, we went to the desert. We went to Jericho, Sodom and Gomorrah. We were going to the Dead Sea. Now, the Dead Sea is one of the funniest things I learned in Israel. First of all, the Dead Sea is the only water body in the world where you cannot sink, even if you try to. I tried it. You only float, you can't sink. And I asked why, and they said, despite the fact that it is actually the lowest part of the planet, of the Earth, it is negative 430 meters below the sea level. So you see a Coca-Cola bar written the lowest, bar on earth. You see an Heineken bar is written the lowest Heineken bar on earth. It is negative 430 meters below sea level. And the other reason is because the salinity of the water of the Dead Sea is actually 34%, when the average salinity of a normal lake is, we were told, 3.4%. So that was very exciting, and it was a big desert, and the Israeli people take advantage of the desert and they plant dates. So you see, coconut-like plantations, and they was like, what is that? We were told those are dates, and Israel is among the top world producer of exporter of dates. And after that, we went to the hotel, packed our luggage, concluded our classes and went back to the airport in Tel Aviv, where we spent so many hours being grilled. I remember telling my friend, oh my goodness, getting out of Israel is actually more laborious than, getting out is more laborious than getting in. We were asking so many questions, including who packed your luggage and when did you pack it? They want to know if it is somebody who packed it so that they can assess whether somebody put in an explosive there or something. So it's all, of course, it's all a security issue, and with security we don't take chances. So that was that, and we came back to the airport, came back to Ethiopia, came back to Nairobi, and I came back to my home village. And that was a dream come true for me. I had always wanted to be in Israel. I couldn't believe that it is the community work, community volunteer work I did way back in 2012 that God used as an opportunity for me to go to the land I had always dreamt of going to. So God appeared to me through the community volunteer work, which I did in 2012, and that is why I testify.